మనకి ఎవరైతే రిసోర్స్ పర్సన్స్ వచ్చారో వాళ్ళ రిసోర్స్ పర్సన్స్ని ఉదయం పరిచయం చేశాను. ఇప్పుడు మనల్ని మనం పరిచయం చేసుకోవాలి కదా, ఇందులో కొత్త వాళ్ళు కూడా వచ్చారు. అందుకని ముందు మన పరిచయాలు ప్రారంభిద్దాం. ఉన్నారు, ఎందుకు ఇది నడుస్తూ ఉంటుంది కదా. నా పేరు సత్యనారాయణమూర్తి, నాని అంటారు అంతా, చెప్పాలి కదా. అదే పాపులర్ నా పేరు కూడా. నాని పార్టీ సహాయ కార్యదర్శిగా పనిచేస్తున్నాను. నేను చదువుకున్నది అయితే 8వ తరగతి. అది మనం ప్రారంభించుకుందాం. ఇంకొక ఇద్దరు, అంటే మురళి అని మదనపల్లి నుంచి వచ్చాడు. వాళ్ళ అమ్మాయికి ఏదో అయ్యిందని చెప్పని హాస్టల్లో చదువుతుంది. ఫోన్ వస్తే ఇప్పుడే శివారెడ్డి కూడా వెళ్ళి ట్రైన్ ఎక్కించి శివారెడ్డి వెనక్కి వస్తున్నాడు. మురళి వెళ్తున్నాడు, ట్రైన్ ఎక్కాడు. శివారెడ్డి వచ్చేస్తాడు. ఏఎస్ఎఫ్ జిల్లా రాష్ట్ర ప్రధాన కార్యదర్శిగా ఉన్నాడు శివారెడ్డి. ఇప్పుడు బిఎల్ చేస్తున్నట్టు ఉన్నాడు కదా. ఎంబీఏ అయిపోయింది, ఇప్పుడు బిఎల్ చేస్తున్నాడు విజయవాడలో శివారెడ్డి. కామ్రేడ్స్, ఇప్పుడు ఆధునిక భారతదేశంలో కుల వ్యతిరేక రాడికల్ ఉద్యమాలకు సంబంధించి అందులోని మొదటి మరాఠా ప్రాంతంలో కుల వ్యతిరేక ఉద్యమాలు కామ్రేడ్ బీకే కాంగో, అలాగే అంబేద్కర్ కుల నిర్మూలన కార్యక్రమం తాత్విక పునాది, దాని మీద ఆచార్య అంజయ్ గారు, వీళ్ళిద్దరూ కూడా ఇప్పుడు లెక్చర్స్ ఇస్తారు. ఈ సెషన్కి మన విజయ్ కుమార్ గారు, రాష్ట్ర మన విద్యా విభాగం సబ్ కమిటీ సభ్యులు, ఆయన కూడా పొలిటికల్ ఎకానమీ చెప్తూ ఉంటారు. బిహెచ్ఎల్లోని డీజీఎంగా రిటైర్ అయ్యారు. ఆయన్ని అధ్యక్షత వహించవలసింది కోరుతున్నాను. అంజయ్, you will preside.
Okay,
yeah, please sit.
No, I'm sitting here. Okay. Sitting here.
Comrades, నేను అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ప్లేస్ అనుకుంటా ఇక్కడ ఉండటం. ఈ సబ్జెక్ట్ మీద మాట్లాడే అర్హత నాకు లేదు. అయితే మహారాష్ట్రలో కుల వ్యతిరేక ఉద్యమాలు దాదాపుగా 150 సంవత్సరాలు 200 సంవత్సరాల చరిత్ర ఉన్నది. దీని గురించి మన బాలకృష్ణ కాంగో గారు, అంజయ్ గారు ఇద్దరు కూడా దాదాపు అంబేద్కర్ మూవ్మెంట్ కూడా మొదలైంది అక్కడే కనుక వీరిద్దరు ప్రసంగిస్తారు. ఇది భీమా కోరెగాం ఉద్యమం ఎట్లా అణిచివేయడానికి బీజేపీ ప్రయత్నం చేసింది అనేది మన కళ్ళ ముందర మనందరం చూసాము. బహుశా అది కూడా ఇక్కడ చర్చకు వస్తుందని చెప్పి నేను భావిస్తూ బాలకృష్ణ కాంగో గారిని మాట్లాడమని కోరుతున్నాను.
Thank you, Comrade Vijay Kumar. I have been told that I should speak slowly. Yes. Habits die very hard. I start slowly, but then in the heat of the discussion, my speed increases. It is like a railway engine, you know. It starts slowly and then takes up the speed. I'll try to control it. As a Marxist, we have told, when we try to analyze any personality, we have to look at the socio-economic conditions of that particular period. I remember this because Comrade Dange once asked the party comrades that why Ambedkar and Ambedkarism flourished in Mumbai and not anywhere else in India. And then he went on to explain the socio-economic conditions of Mumbai city and development of capitalism and development of social conditions and how they were conducive for Ambedkar thought. And therefore he said that Ambedkar could do something in Mumbai and Maharashtra because of the spread of capitalism. So when we are trying to analyze Phule and Ambedkar movement, I take it as a Marxist that you can easily read about the biographies of Phule and Ambedkar, when they were born, where they were born, when they died, and we are not interested in that chronology. But we are interested in the different periods when these two great men spoke about caste system and its destruction, and how they differed from each other, and at the same time how Ambedkar said that Mahatma Phule is his guru. In his life, it was Gautam Buddha and Mahatma Phule. These two were accepted as gurus by Dr. Ambedkar. And so Mahatma Phule has a special place in the Dalit movement. Two states in particular, one is Tamil Nadu because of Periyar's, and Maharashtra because of Phule Ambedkar, are supposed to be, and at the same time because of the direct rule of Britishers in Chennai and its old Madras state and Mumbai province. Karachi was also a part of that Mumbai province once upon a time. The development of capitalism took place more in these two areas, and therefore it has a direct impact on the social change of the social relations. So these factors have to be considered when we consider these movements. But there is still a difference. Phule was born in 1827, and what was the condition of Maharashtra that time? He just mentioned about Bhima Koregaon. On 1st of January 1818, in a battle at Bhima Koregaon, the British army defeated Maratha army. Maratha army means army of Marathi people controlled by Peshwas who were prime minister to a Maratha king. But they were virtual, Pune was virtual the seat of Brahmins, controlling most of India now, Gwalior, Jhansi, even up to Delhi. They went to Panipat to fight Muhammad Shah Abdali to protect the Mughal king. They were called to protect the Mughal king. I remember a very interesting incident about a play which was written by my friend of mine who has imagined that Indira Gandhi is on the deathbed and she is instructing her daughter-in-laws about the politics of India, in which she is mentioning a Maratha political leader. He said, don't worry about these political Maratha leaders. They will never think of sitting on the Delhi throne. They will come and make someone sit and will think of protection. Because this is because of the fact that Mughals could have been easily defeated by Marathas. But Marathas gave protection to the Mughal kings to the extent that they went and fought Muhammad Shah Abdali and lost the battle and killed so many 1 lakh Marathas were killed in that period. But I am not going into the detail, but I am just telling you the Marathas had become so much important force after the end of Mughal that they controlled Gwalior, Jhansi, Vadodara, and they had spread everywhere. In fact, their spread was so high that in Odisha, when I went there, I was told that during those period, if you remember Sholay movie, Gabbar Singh, that villain, says that when a child is crying, the mother tells Gabbar Singh is coming and the child will sleep. So similarly in Odisha it was said that if the child is crying, the mother will say Marathas are coming and the child will sleep. That was the terror of Marathas. And that is the reason why Rabindranath Tagore and his brother, when Shivaji was being projected as a national hero, did not participate in that movement in a big way. Of course, these are historical facts we should know, therefore I am just trying to put forward. Because the image of Marathas in eastern India, in Bengal, Odisha, was one of people who come and loot, not the people who come and rule. So that was the image. But still, that kingdom of Peshwas controlled, the kingdom was of Marathas, but ruled by Peshwas, got defeated by the British army. And one of the contingent of British army was from the scheduled caste. And therefore, scheduled caste people feel that it was a war of liberation. Because the Brahminical hegemony or Brahminical rule got ended till that time the Peshwas had Brahminical rules and Dalit masses were oppressed to such an extent that in the city of Pune, it is said that they could not walk on the roads because they are, what do you call, yes, they pollute everything. They were supposed to put a small pot in front of them, and because if they want to spit, they have to spit in that pot. They had to put a jharu so that the road on which they walk gets cleaned by jharu itself. Like those rules prevailed once upon a time, and so there was an oppression, which some historians contest. Some historians say that was not the scheduled caste tribes also were, scheduled caste and scheduled caste tribes were also part of Maratha armies everywhere. But whatever the reason, but the Dalits in general perceive that the defeat of Peshwas was liberation war. And they take pride that it was the Dalit contingent which fought bravely along with the British, and therefore Marathas were defeated. Historical reasons say that the British army was more equipped, more modern in discipline than the Maratha armies, which was a collection of soldiers, which was not a very disciplined army. Something like that, but whatever the reasons. Ambedkar visited Bhima Korega only once. There is a monument near the river where the British soldiers and the Mahar regiment which was there, the soldiers died, their names are inscribed there. And particularly Kanshiram and BSP, when they came to the power in UP, started organizing big festival on 1st of January there every year as a mark of Dalit supremacy having prevailed, or Dalit having got liberated from the Brahminical tyranny. So Bhima Koregaon has a special place as far as the Maharashtra is concerned and the Dalit movement is concerned because of BSP and Ambedkar. But Ambedkar was very cautious because Ambedkar was a very learned person and he knew everything. Therefore, he understood that on one hand, it is true that the Brahminical rule ended, but on the other hand, it was not a liberation movement because the British colonialism came back. And therefore, he was very cautious. He understood that celebrating this in a big way will create a wedge between the Indians themselves. So there is nothing to be proud about the British victory. At the same time, he understood the importance of that victory, social importance of that victory. But he visited only once and did not go again. But now, as a politics, as a communist, we must understand the Naxalites, having been cornered in tribal areas, are now trying to spread in urban areas. And when they want to spread in urban areas, they feel that it is the scheduled caste who are staying in poor jhopadpattis and other areas are easy prey to their philosophy. And therefore they are propagating anything that will help to divide the society on the basis of the caste. Khairlanji, if you remember an incident in which a family of the Mahar community, which is an SC community to which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar belonged, was tortured and killed in that village by OBC crowd. Now we have a party there. Initially, we were told by the party comrade that it is a wage struggle. This Dalit family owns the land. In Vidarbha, if you come, it is very strange. In one part of Maharashtra, which is Vidarbha, you will have landlords, which are Dalits. So this family had a land and these OBCs were working on that land as landless laborers. And there was a wage dispute, which created a problem and which led to this kind of casteist. They were killed and women were paraded, naked women were paraded, and rest of the villagers kept quiet because it was a caste dimension also to that struggle. 8 days nothing happened. Police arrested the people and everything. But Naxalites started spreading as if it is a very big thing, and whole of Maharashtra, the movement spread. So similarly, this celebration of the Bhima Koregaon was partly planned by the Naxalites to celebrate in a big way, and therefore they organized a meeting on the 31st of December in front of Shanwarwada, which was the place of Peshwas once upon a time. They organized a meeting in front of that, and they invited Jignesh Mewani and others. And one of the esteemed judges who belonged to the Peasants and Workers' Party and was very close to communist movement, Mr. P.B. Sawant, who died recently, he was a Supreme Court judge. He presided over the meeting, and so many other people also attended the meeting. And there were some of them made very fiery speeches, some of them very provocative speeches. But there was nothing like as if it was a planned thing to kill the Prime Minister or to create a wedge. But at the same time, RSS and BJP also planned a parallel movement at the same place. 3 kilometers away from there is a village where Aurangzeb killed Shivaji's son Sambhaji. And he was killed very brutally. He was killed by taking out his eyes, cutting his fingers, cutting his hands, and he was mercilessly killed into pieces. And the historical references say that one Mahar family, a scheduled caste family, staying in the village, showed the courage of bringing those pieces, stitching them, and then taking that body for the final cremation. Now this theory is being challenged by RSS ideologues like Mr. Bhide, who claims that he is PhD in nuclear science. I don't know whether it is. He is now 82 years old, and he has been a poisonous personality in Maharashtra, trying to spread caste, anti-Muslim feelings everywhere. And there is one Mr. Egbote, an advocate, who is in charge of the Hindu Revival Organization. So both of them went in that area and moved and decided to have a procession on the same day when lakhs and lakhs of Dalits assemble there. And with a plan to attack Dalits and create a problem, and that is what they did. They attacked the Dalits with stones and everything and created an unrest, which was followed by all Maharashtra strike and everything, and then that created a ruckus. Now the BJP is trying to utilize that incident with the help of the central agencies and the police and CBI, as if it was a long game plan by these few individuals to create a problem. And therefore now there is a case going on and they have been arrested, but there are no proofs of that. But this struggle, the history behind this struggle should be known to you. Therefore I took little more time, though it is not my subject, but you must understand. So first in 1818, collapse of the indigenous government controlled by Maratha, by the Brahmins, but ruled by Marathas, collapsed. That was the first incident. Second thing, the British took over Pune and the remaining territory and made it a part of Bombay province. So their education, English education and everything entered into the... Before that also the missionaries had already brought education to that area. Mahatma Phule himself was a student of a missionary school, Scottish missionary school. The capitalism slowly entered and brought new businesses in the area. For example, Mahatma Phule and many of his associates were contractors in Mumbai for constructing Victoria Terminus and many other stations and buildings in Mumbai. Telugu community, because we are in Andhra Pradesh, let me tell you, number of Telugu contractors were there that time. I don't know their caste, but they were great financiers of the Mahatma Jyotiba Phule's movement. Why they were so motivated, I don't know, but it is historical fact that Telugu community in Maharashtra, which was basically had come for constructions and contracts, was one of the strong supporters of Mahatma Phule during that period. Now, sociological analysis of that Telugu community has to be done. Whether they belong to OBCs and other caste, I don't know. They were certainly not scheduled caste. But that sizable population is still there. Now, of course, most of them speak Marathi, but that time they were clearly speaking Telugu. Mahatma Phule, another importance is that the first union of, not association of the workers, mill hand association, was formed by one of the followers of Mahatma, N.M. Lokhande is his name. And that is how they say that Mahatma Phule and his philosophy and his thinking led to formation of the consciousness, political and organizational consciousness amongst the Mumbai workers. Communist came subsequently, but before that this was the process. So N.M. Lokhande is now considered in Maharashtra as the pioneer of the labor movement and who was a staunch follower of Mahatma Phule. So this was the second thing. Third important thing I think which we should know is entry of capitalism, entry of education system and end of the indigenous rule. These three things created a new situation in Maharashtra. Mahatma Phule was the product of this period. Basically, he belonged to a family which is from OBC caste, which is called as Mali. I don't know whether that caste exists here. Mali means there are two kinds of Malis. One, vegetable growers and those who grow flowers and vegetables and sell it. This is one type of Mali, full Mali. And the second is those who provide garlands and bouquets for various functions. So Mahatma Phule belonged to the second type. So he was staying in Pune, and his father was supplier of flour to the Peshwas, and he was rewarded by the Peshwas for that. So till the year of 17, Mahatma Phule was not in the movement as such, and he was very much a part of the system that time. But he went to a marriage of his friend who was from a different caste, and he was insulted there. He was not allowed to sit along with others for taking food. He was insulted. So he started thinking about the caste system and its effect, and then came to the conclusion that caste system is a creation of Brahminical mind. And therefore he started criticizing Vedas, Upanishads and others, and at the same time looked at Ramayana and the conquest of Rama of Sri Lanka and the south as the colonial expansion of the Aryans. And so he is a strong critic of Ramayana and Ram, and has given number of incidences to show how Ram was not a liberator but a oppressor, something like that. Second thing, important thing we should understand is that during that period, the capitalism in India basically meant raw materials from India were taken to England. Cotton. Mahatma Gandhi's, if you remember 1926, the Satyagraha of Champaran, that particular needle which was used in color, these farmers were compelled to grow that. So similarly, this kind of thing existed, that farmers were compelled to grow crops which were helping British industries. So Mahatma Phule championed the cause of farmers. In fact, it is very interesting that he reinterpreted the whole Puranas to show that the farmer caste was the most important caste in India. There is a story which is circulated in Puranas of Bali Raja, if you remember. The Vaman avatar, which number avatar of Vishnu, I don't know. Fifth Vaman avatar, it says that Bali Raja was the king ruling the world that time. And Vaman went to him. And as per the practice that Brahmins have to be given something, so king offered that I am ready to give whatever you want. He said, I want only 3 feet. Wherever I keep my feet, that should belong to me. And he agreed. So in 1 feet, he captured the world. Whole of the world in 1 feet he captured. In the second feet also he captured the heaven. And the third, he said, now I got 1 more feet to keep. Where should I keep? The king had nothing else to left. So he said, you can keep it on my head. So he kept it on the head and pushed him down and he finished him. That is the story. So he interpreted this story as a victory of Aryans over the local tribes, local farmers and farming tribes. And therefore he said that in order to fight back culturally, he started worshipping Baliraja as the farmer's god. And he started that practice, and it is still practiced in Maharashtra at number of places. So that is one of the important cultural contribution of Mahatma Phule. Second important thing is he understood that he was influenced by Thomas Paine, an American philosopher who wrote Rights of Man, a book in which, because America at that time was they were against, intellectuals were against slavery, and they used to write rights of man, freedom of man, and so he was very much influenced by that. He was also influenced by missionaries and their work. There were missionary schools of girls in the adjoining districts of Pune. So he thought that we should start education to the girls, because he interpreted patriarchy as one of the attributes of the Aryan invasion in the Indian society. And in order to finish patriarchy, he felt that women have to be educated. And therefore he gave special importance for education of women and started a women's school in 1848, but he did not get the teachers. So he taught his own wife and made her a teacher. They were opposed by orthodox Brahmins. She was troubled. You know that dirt was thrown on her sari. She was stoned. The two students were not allowed to go, but somehow he managed it. And students from various communities, 273 girls started coming in the three schools, which he started in 1848 to 1858. But then in 1858 the schools were closed. Why? Because it is said that it was funded by Europeans initially, and they stopped the funding after 1857 war. So he did not have money, and government aid also stopped after coming. The company aid that was coming to the schools also was stopped, because the Indian government was taken over by the British government. So the schools were closed, that is said. But his contribution to the cause of women is something about which we should all know and we should be proud of. Because he was the first man who understood the patriarchal society and its injustices on women. So his wife, Savitribai Phule, not only got herself educated, but after his death of Mahatma Phule also fought bravely in plague. She died in plague while helping the people. There was a plague epidemic in Pune city, and she was helping the plague victims, in which she died. So she was a very brave woman and a social reformer. The third important contribution is that in order to reform, not only reform, but he said that Hindu religion is not our religion. So he started his own religion, which is called as Satya Dharma. And that Satya Dharma, he wrote some principles for it. He wrote a number of books, small books he wrote, but they are very important. He wrote a drama also about farmers' tragedy. He wrote a drama about farmers. He was such a champion of farmers. When King George of England came, Mahatma Phule went and met him in the farmer's dress to impress on him that the country he is ruling is the country of farmers, and he should attend the plight of the farmers. So in order to focus the plight of the farmers, he emphasized by going and meeting him as a farmer. Second important consideration which he had was he demanded free education, primary education to all, irrespective of class and caste. That is another important contribution of Mahatma Phule. Lot of people were attracted towards his movement. There is a history of so many people writing essays, books, and starting a movement. That time, the capitalism has not percolated in India in such a big way. The banking system had not come. Money lenders were there. Money lenders were basically from upper caste. And Brahmins, zamindars were there. The landholders were majority Brahmins in the villages. So, basically when he started fighting, it was said that it was against the Sethji and Bhatji. Sethji means merchants and Bhatji means Brahmins. But in spite of that, Mahatma Phule was not against Brahmins as individuals. It is very important to see. One of these, he did not have his own issue. But he adopted a son of a widow Brahmin. In 1863, there was a report in Pune in which one Brahmin widow tried to get rid of her child. And she had to make repeated efforts in which she died. It was a very sad news. And Mahatma Jyotiba Phule and his wife were very much affected by that. Therefore, they started a movement. They went and put on posters saying that Brahmin widows, do not afraid. We have started a house where you can have your safe delivery of the child. Don't commit suicide. We are there to help you. And this will be kept secret. Your name will not be disclosed. Like those posters were published by him and put it on the board. It requires a tremendous courage in 1863 to do that. But he did it. And that too in Pune, the seat of Brahminical supremacy. So you can understand the courage of this couple and the visionary. In fact, some people in Maharashtra nowadays compare him to the Karl Marx because both of them were contemporary. So he said Phule was nothing but Karl Marx of India. That is how they compare him. He is called Mahatma by fellow. Our party has done a women work, particularly Comrade Govind Pansare, who was murdered by the fundamentalist forces, did a wonderful job of publishing Mahatma Phule's all literary work and his contribution to the society in 10 small booklets. Mahatma Phule and women, Mahatma Phule and education, Mahatma Phule and farmers, Mahatma Phule and religion. Like that, 10 books were published written by 10 authors, and we have sold thousands of copies of that book. The first book on Mahatma Phule was published by our publication house in Marathi, written by editor of our weekly magazine Yugantar, Comrade Prabhakar Vaidya. Senior people must be knowing. He was a respected writer. Prabhakar Vaidya. He wrote that book of Mahatma Phule in 1960. It is a well-studied and well-researched book. Now, taking advantage of all this, G.P. Deshpande from Jawaharlal Nehru University has also written a book on Mahatma Phule in English. That was the first time, and I was associated with because I helped him. I called Prabhat Patnaik to Aurangabad to release that book. It is not published by us, it is published by someone, but I organized a program to release that book. And that is the first book on Mahatma Phule in English, published in 1990. And it has spread the message of Mahatma Phule everywhere.
Written in Marathi?
In English.
By whom?
By G.P. Deshpande.
It's an edited work, not an independent work.
No, it's an edited work. It is a collection which has been translated in Marathi.
Then it is 2002.
2000, yeah.
Not 1990.
We had a program, and then it was, in 2002, it was released. Because publication took about 10 years.
Oh,
So, because it is a big volume. And
big volume.
big volume. So it took a lot of time and a lot of editing also. But the point is, the name of Mahatma Phule and his understanding spread to everyone after the publication. So communists should take pride that we are responsible for spreading his message. So those people who accuse us that we are against caste should understand that we understand in a broader sense struggle against caste and the people who did it second. Now something happened which changed the whole movement and its dimension. There was a king in Kolhapur, Chhatrapati Shahu. He was a very progressive king in that sense that he became disciple of Mahatma Phule and his Satya Shodhak Samaj. But he was a king, he was a feudal king. He has his political interest. And he was hurt when he was told by one of the well-known Brahmin that there was a practice when the king used to take bath, the Brahmin was supposed to say mantras. One learned Brahmin told king that this Brahmin, whatever mantras he is saying, are not Vedic mantras. They are something different. So he asked, why you are not singing Vedic mantras? So he said, you are Shudra, you are not Kshatriya. So how can I sing Vedic mantras in your honor? Because it is only reserved for Kshatriyas and you are not Kshatriya. So he got annoyed and he said, I will challenge this hegemony of Brahminical hegemony. So he appointed his own Shankaracharya. Karvir, it is known as Karvir Shankaracharya. And started a movement, but then that led to a very important development in political and social life of Maharashtra. Since then, all conflict in Maharashtra is centered around these two poles. Pune Brahmins versus Kolhapur Marathas. And both of them trying to utilize other castes and religions to support them. That has a wider impact. I will come back to it later on. But this is very important because of that feudal king taking over the mantle of Satya Shodhak Samaj. But it has a very positive impact in Western Maharashtra. In Western Maharashtra, our Kisan Sabha leaders and the hero of 1942, Nana Patil, and his friends, who subsequently joined Communist Party, took up this cause of Satya Shodhak Samaj in big way. And village after village, they declared that the money lenders cannot take loans and cannot take interest, and Brahmins cannot stop anyone from coming to temples. Even the marriages were performed without Brahmins, which was called as Satya Shodhak marriages. And still the tradition is being followed in Maharashtra. The husband and wife along with the families come together in front of the people, they take oath. Mahatma Phule and Savitri Bai's photo is kept, they are garlanded and it is declared that the marriage has taken place and it is recognized by government. In the law it is recognized. So it was a very, very reformist movement in which the Brahmin dominance was at all levels was challenged. At the same time, money lender also were challenged. So this is the impact of Mahatma Phule, and he has written books. I need not tell you because the names are in Marathi. He wrote one book about slavery, Gulamgiri, which is describing how the caste slavery exists in India. Then he wrote about a play about farmers being exploited. Then he wrote also some songs about farmers' exploitation. So like that, he has a lot of contribution. His contribution to education, women equality, protest against child marriage and all these things. So he was a very big social reformer, but with an idea of cultural hegemony to be smashed, Brahminical cultural hegemony to be smashed. So that was Mahatma Phule. Ambedkar was born in 1992, virtually at the end of Mahatma Phule's life. Ambedkar was not born in Maharashtra, he was born in Indore, in Mahu, which is a military place of British. And because Ambedkar's father was a subedar in military, British military. Therefore, Ambedkar could have some education. But when he came to Maharashtra, he was asked to sit outside the school. Ambedkar's name is not, his surname is not Ambedkar, his surname is Sakpal. This Ambedkar name was given to him by a Brahmin teacher who liked him and loved him. And Ambedkar retained that name till the last. That shows that he was not against Brahmins. There are now trends which say that Ambedkar was against he was against Brahminism, he was not against Brahmins. There is a very interesting incident. In 1926, when he organized the first satyagraha for taking water from Mahad dam tank, which is called a Chaudhar tank. It was in 1926. So almost it is now completing 100 years. People are trying to organize different movements to remember that particular contribution. We should also remember when he started that satyagraha, the only photo that was kept was Mahatma Gandhi. No other photo was kept there. Because people talk a lot about differences between Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar. But very few people say this. There is a lot of controversy about it because somebody went to the court objected to his satyagraha, and the magistrate told him that he can't do satyagraha, and Ambedkar agreed to it, something like that, and therefore they say that he was a constitutionalist, he was just a reformer. His disciples somehow said that nothing doing, we will go and have a strike. Dada Saheb Gaikwad and others, they did it. So that all history is there, I will not go it. But Ambedkar was educated in Columbia University, and also in London School of Economics. He is the only person perhaps having 2 PhDs from 2 different universities. And he did his barrister at law, even in London, from another institute. So he was a very learned person. And for this he was helped by the king of Kolhapur and king of Vadodara, both of whom were from Maratha caste, and both of them were social reformers in their own capacity. The first system of reservation, about which nowadays so many people talk, was introduced by Shahu Maharaj in 1902 in Maharashtra, in Kolhapur. He not only started reservation, 50% limit was his imposition. He said 50% of the government jobs will be reserved for scheduled caste and others. That was his diktat. But he also started boarding houses, hostels for different communities. One for Jain community, one for Muslim community, one for Maratha community, one for all the caste which were existing in his small kingdom. He started boarding schools for everyone so that everyone can have modern education. Therefore, the spread of education in Maharashtra was rapid at that time. But at the same time, because of the feudal dominance in the movement, the Satya Dharma or Satya Shodhak Samaj became anti-Brahmin in its approach. The Brahmins also helped it by opposing it everywhere. So it became anti-Brahmin. It went to such an extent that in 1926, when Ambedkar started his Satyagraha, the in charge of the Satya Shodhak Samaj wrote a letter to him. Keshav Rao Zede was his name. He wrote him a letter saying that if he assures that no Brahmin will be a part of his movement, then the Satya Shodhak Samaj will support him. To which Ambedkar very clearly replied that any Brahmin who has understood my movement and is against the caste system cannot be prevented from entering my movement just because he is a Brahmin. So Satya Shodhak Samaj did not become a part of the movement. Individuals became a part of the movement. But as a society, as an organization, it did not become part of the Ambedkarite movement. It always remained dominated by feudal Maratha interest. And that had affected the politics of Maharashtra for a long period. It changed only after Mandal. Till Mandal, it was dominated by these feudal elements in Maharashtra. The difference in Ambedkar and Phule's social time is the spirit of capitalism was more when Ambedkar was born. And not only that, the capitalism also changed. The textile mill started in Bombay and Nagpur in 1876. The model of capitalism, which was brought by East India Company, was exploiting the Indian raw material for the British industries. Now British industries had grown and they realized that it is futile, but the British trade union movement had also become very strong by that time. We talk of 1848 Communist Manifesto, World Trade Union Organization having taken place in London, the Chartist movement having taken place in London, where workers got right to form trade unions. So British capitalists thought that why not go to India with industry? Rather than bringing all the way raw material from India, produce finished product in England, and then again going and selling it back to India and other places, why not produce it in India itself? So penetration of capital and starting of industries became a major change in capitalism during Phule's time and Ambedkar's time. And therefore Ambedkar could say to his people, leave villages and come to the cities. Because he felt by leaving villages, the oppression of the upper caste can easily be dealt with, and by coming to the cities, jobs can be found in the industries, and at the same time, new opportunities will be open to the people in the cities, like education, health and other things. This is the similarity between Marx, because in 1854 when the railway came, it was Marx who has written about India saying that the stagnated productive system in India will now face a challenge. And it will undergo change. It will not only the change in the production process, it will also change the production relations. And so the caste system, he did not say the caste system will die, but he will say the change in the system will start taking place. That is what happened, which we are seeing now. But like Phule also, Ambedkar had a complete vision of this caste system. Who Were Shudras was his book. He also wrote about the cultural conflict in India. But he went on a lot of changes because he was basically an idealist, influenced by social democrats, Davy and others who influenced him. He was not influenced by the Soviet Revolution, let me say. In 1917, the communist revolution took place, but he was not influenced by that because he was a firm believer in individual freedom and liberty. Though he was against private capital, because if you remember, he ultimately talked of state socialism, of nationalizing all farmlands. He did talk about it, but didn't do anything about it, but he talked about it at least. So to say that he was a capitalist is not correct. But he was definitely a democrat and influenced by democratic, social democrats of that time. So therefore he was not in favor of socialism. He was not in favor of communist also. In fact, there is an interesting incident. From our LVG, we have published a book of a Dalit writer himself. He has written this book in which he has claimed that in 1954, Ambedkar was invited for an organization of the Buddhist youth. Now he claims that this conference was financed and thought of by CIA. Because at that time, Korean War was going on and the communist influence was increasing in all Buddhist countries, whether it was Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam. So they wanted to pose Buddhism as a religion, which they did in Afghanistan to force Taliban to attack the Soviets. So similarly, they did the same trick, and Ambedkar that time was thinking of changing religion. So they invited him for the Buddhist conference, in which he agreed. But he was given a subject at the 11th hour saying that he has to compare Buddha with Marx, Buddhism and Marxism. So he delivered a lecture in which he showed that most of the principles of Buddha and Marx are similar. The only difference is violence. Buddha says don't use violence to change the society, and the communists say violence to the society. The subject of the topic was Marxism and Buddhism. But very cleverly, when the news of his speech came to India, the writer of the Ambedkar's speech and literature was one gentleman from Punjab, I don't recollect his name. He wrote Marx or Buddha. He changed the title. Rather than saying Marx and Ambedkar, he put it Marx or Buddha by Ambedkar. And that is how the book has become popular. It has become virtually, for Ambedkarites who are anti-Marxist or anti-communist, that has become a Gita for them. But Ambedkar never meant it like that, because there is another incident which Pansare published it. Ambedkar in 1954 itself, when he was very sick, wrote a letter to his followers, particularly Dada Saheb Gaikwad, who became the General Secretary of the Republican Party after Ambedkar's death. He wrote a letter saying that I made a mistake. I would like my people to join Communist Party, Communist movement. Because that is the only assurance of ending the caste discrimination. I don't see any other method out. That is it.
Title alone is changed, or content is also changed?
No, content, some part of the content is changed, but basically it is the title which has changed. So that is how Ambedkar, we have published that letter in one of the Pansare's documents. And there is a lot of controversy about it, because that letter is written in Marathi. So interpretation according to them is wrong or something like that. But still, it is a fact that Ambedkar in his last periods started thinking of the communist movement. So that is a fact. There is another incident which is being used by the Ambedkarites to denigrate the communist movement. In 1952, in the first election that took place, Ambedkar lost the election from Bombay. And people say that he lost election because Comrade Dange was contesting against him and the communists did not vote for him. That time it was a dual constituency. The constituency is not like that. Each man had two votes. One for the open seat and one for the reserve seat. But the reality is that Ambedkar that time, because of his anti-Soviet, anti-communist stand, aligned with Socialist Party of India. Ashok Mehta was his choice. So Ashok Mehta stood in general seat and Ambedkar stood in reserve seat. We did not have alliance with anyone. So Dange stood in the general seat and told our people, please give only one vote. Don't use second vote. But that was a political stand. It was nothing against Ambedkar. But Ambedkar lost. But it was not because of the communists. It became very clear because when again Ambedkar contested the bypolls in 1954 from Bhandara, Comrade Bardhan was his chief election agent and Communist Party was in full support of Ambedkar. But still he lost. Because that time the Congress and influence of freedom movement was so strong that even Ambedkar could not withstand. As today we have seen, the wave of Hindutva is demolishing big stalwarts. So same thing under the freedom movement and its influence and people like Nehru, Patel, Maulana Azad and others, Kidwai, standing in front as the Congress leaders, the rest of them did not have much scope. But Ambedkar started thinking about caste system, Indian situation. There is one accusation which is made against Ambedkar was that he did not participate in freedom movement. It is a fact. Ambedkar was a part of Viceroy's team from 1942 to 45. He was a labor minister in that team. So those people who accuse communists having betrayed the country in 1942 are conveniently silent about Ambedkar's role in 1942. But we should understand in retrospect why Ambedkar took that position. Because Ambedkar felt that the Congress, which is representing the majority of the Hindus, will perpetuate caste system, will not end the caste system. It is only the presence of the British which has compelled them to take progressive positions. So if the British leaves, Congress will revert back to old positions. That was his accusation. And therefore there is a famous dialogue when he says, Mahatma Gandhi, your people at least have got a nation. But what about my people? I don't have a nation. And there was that historical struggle between Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar which took place in 1932 after the second round table conference in which communal award was passed. The separate seats were given to Muslims and Dalits. Mahatma Gandhi felt that this will divide the majority community on caste lines and therefore he sat on hunger strike in the jail. Ambedkar initially did not accept his demands but went to meet him ultimately because of persuasion went and met him. And an agreement was signed in which Mahatma Gandhi almost in communal award gave 71 seats to Ambedkar. But Mahatma Gandhi's alliance with Ambedkar gave him 141 seats. So Ambedkar gained. But only difference was in communal awards, it was only Dalits who were supposed to vote for the Dalit candidates. But in Gandhiji's 141 seats, it was a common candidate. Only Dalit can contest that, but everybody can vote for it. And now Kanshira Mayawati felt that this is strengthened the BJP. Because the majority of the people in the name of Hindutva are voting only those Dalit candidates which favor them and which are not against the caste system. So they criticized that agreement. Most of the people at that time, even Ambedkar defended the saying that it is one of the best agreement that has come. Today's reservation is because of that agreement. And we have published a book. We are now coming out with that book in English and Hindi also from PPH, written by a well-known Dalit scholar, Rao Sahib Kasbe, who has said that there was an influence of Ambedkar on Gandhi and Gandhi's influence on Ambedkar. What was that? He says that after that agreement, Gandhiji made abolition of caste discrimination as one of the major agenda of Congress. after 1935, Gandhiji went and stayed in Dalit bastis. Because of Gandhiji's efforts, more than 6 lakhs temples allowed entry of Dalits into the temples. Congress adopted interdining and abolition of untouchability as one of the part of its program. And Gandhi on his personal level said that intercaste marriage is the only solution to the end of caste, which Ambedkar has agreed in his book, famous book, Annihilation of Caste, that intercaste marriage is one of the methods of ending the caste system. Both came from a different angle, different perspective, but both of them came to the same conclusion that intercaste, and Gandhi followed that to such an extent that he, after 95, he has not undertaken a single marriage where there was not an intercaste marriage. Even Gandhi's secretary Mahadev Desai, who died in 1942, and his son Narayan Desai, who used to play with Gandhiji when he was a child. Gandhiji used to cuddle him, tell him stories and make him sleep. For that boy's marriage also Gandhiji did not go because he did not marry, he had a same caste marriage. So Gandhiji was so strict about his principle that he did not go. And he has narrated an incident in which this Narayan Desai was called by Ambedkar, and for his second marriage, which he had with the Brahmin women, Ambedkar gave that fellow an invitation card in the name of Mahatma Gandhi and said that Mahatma ji would have attended my marriage. So that was the relationship between both, and people unnecessarily, Ambedkarites, create confusion about relations between Ambedkar and the communists, and also create confusion between relations of Gandhi and Ambedkar. How it influenced Ambedkar, that also is narrated, which we should know. Ambedkar was elected to Constituent Assembly from East Pakistan, from East Bengal. But when the Constituent Assembly started meeting, the partition had taken place, and that East Bengal went to East Pakistan. So Ambedkar lost his seat. Now he could not be a part of constitution making. Gandhiji called Patel and Nehru, both of them, and said, Gandhiji had left Congress by that time. So Gandhiji said, don't tell me that you can't control Congress and can't get Ambedkar elected from anywhere in India. Don't tell me you have become so weak as leaders. So Patel ultimately appealed to Barrister Jaikar, who was elected from Mumbai University, from the Mumbai constituency as a member of constituency, to resign. He resigned, and Ambedkar was elected unopposed from that post to the Constituent Assembly, and then subsequently was made the chairman of the drafting committee. Author has written that when Patel came with the list of ministers, Gandhi said, Ambedkar name is not there, I will not accept. I want him as a law minister. And so his name was included in law minister. And Ambedkar, who has written a very critical book about what Congress and Gandhi has done for untouchables, and used to describe that Congress is a burning house, joined the Nehru ministry as a law minister, accepted his post as a drafting committee chairman, and wrote a wonderful constitution for us. That is how Gandhi's influence changed Ambedkar. So these are some historical facts which you should know, because people these days are trying to create a tension between Gandhi and Ambedkar, between communist and Ambedkar. Very few people know that Ambedkar's political career started with a red flag. He was not our party member, but he started a party which was called as the Labour Party. And if you read Ambedkar's article in Janta, one of the weeklies which he has started, in which he has said, he has written very clearly about the importance of Soviet Revolution and how it has changed the economic situation in Russia and other places. So that influence led him to understand and at the same time the historical strike of the textile workers had taken place in Bombay in 1928. 6 months strike had taken place. So that has shown him the strength of the working class. So he thought Labour Party is one of the methods of changing the society. So he formed a Labour Party, which very few people understand. And he contested the election with the help of Labour Party, in which at that time they were not communists, but Shamrao Parulekar and through others who subsequently joined Communist Party were members of that particular team. 14 MLAs were elected And Dange was also elected, and they had a close cooperation in the Bombay Assembly as opposition leader, because Ambedkar was the opposition leader and Dange was also in opposition to the Congress regime, and both of them had a close cooperation against many bills and spoke against many bills. So this historical fact of communist and Ambedkar's cooperation is not being highlighted by the people who are interested in keeping Ambedkar away from communists. Today, unfortunately, RSS is trying to usurp the Ambedkar, because Ambedkar wrote a book on Pakistan or partition. That was the first book ever written by anyone before the talk of partition started. And he supported partition, let me say. But at the same time, he said that the population should be exchanged. And he said that it should be decided by voting and not by leaders. Something like that. But he had, and now RSS is trying to use that he was against Muslims and against minorities or something like that. But all this is history. But Ambedkar can be utilized, can be used by capitalist forces as anti-Marxist, by Hindutva forces as anti-Muslim, and they can use his image amongst the people to create problems and create wedge and division. Ambedkar spoke in detail about the caste system. He has written a lot about origin of caste system. He has defined 6 characters of caste system. He said that caste system is, first of all, you have to be born in a caste. You can't acquire caste. You can't go into any caste unless you are born. So by birth, caste is acquired. So that is first characteristics. Second characteristics he has described is that there is no interdining. Third character which he has described is compulsion of occupation. You have to follow the same occupation which your forefathers are doing. The fourth he has described is intercaste marriages. He said that you can't marry out of your caste. Fifth was untouchability. And the sixth was not doing other work, not leaving your caste and doing some other work. And like that 6 characteristics. Now out of that 6 characteristics, today, what is remaining? You can still get caste only by birth. And intercaste marriages, in spite of Ambedkar and Gandhi, intercaste marriages are not more than 5% in India. So for abolition of caste, intercaste marriages, he felt, would help in a big way, because that would clear the issues. At the same time, he felt that reservations are a must, because not because of unemployment, but it will give social status, because he was for social justice. He felt today the upper caste look down on the lower caste because they are doing menial work. They are not occupying high posts. But tomorrow if they become teachers, professors, police inspector, doctors, vice chancellors, then the attitude of the upper caste towards lower caste will change. And therefore he was for social upliftment, for social status, he was for reservation. Unfortunately, today reservation is being looked after as a panacea for unemployment, which is not. Because I always laugh when privatization is taking place and lakhs of jobs from public sectors are being lost. Nobody agitates against him. But for few percentage of jobs, everybody is on the road. There was a study which said that between 2012 and 2018, 1 crore public sector jobs have virtually disappeared. Even if you give 50%, that means 50 lakh reservation jobs have disappeared. Now this would have been enjoyed by the caste which are claiming that they were deprived. So there would have been a serious agitation against them, but nothing is happening. Our struggle against privatization it remains an isolated struggle. People don't look at it as and we also don't project it that this is one of the causes for social justice.
And also we are asking the reservations in private
No. There is nothing wrong in asking for our party supports, but that is accepting the private. Do we accept the privatization of public sector? We do not. We say it is selling of the national wealth in the interest of private interest. But there is an attitude amongst the Dalit sections which say that we have nothing to do with socialism, we have nothing to do with capitalism. What we want is a reservation. Whoever gives us more reservation is with, tomorrow if private sector gives reservation, then they are with capitalism because they don't need public sector, because they don't look at it that public sector is necessary for the development of equitable chances for an individual. But Ambedkar was aware about it. Therefore, Ambedkar in 1938, before speaking before the railway unions, said that the Indian working class has two enemies. One is capitalism and second is Brahminism. He was very clear in his mind. He said that rest of the countries doesn't have to fight two enemies, but we will have to fight two enemies, against caste discrimination and against the class discrimination. Similarly, he said that Indian constitution and Indian democracy has given one vote to a peon and one vote to Tata and Birla. So there is an equality, though there is a disparity of wealth and everything, but there is a political equality. But this political equality will not remain if we do not address the economic and social inequality which prevails in the society. So he has hinted at it, that political democracy is not sufficient. It is necessary but not sufficient. Equal opportunity is must. And today we talk of unequal wealth distribution. We give a lot of statistics of Oxfam and Gini coefficient and number of things. I would not like to mention that. But we give those examples. But reality, do we talk about assets, inequality in assets? In Punjab till 1950, Dalits were not allowed to have any property. There are many pockets in India where Dalits were not supposed to have any property. They could not own any property. So today if you analyze the economy of the district, you will find that Dalits and minorities are not major assets. They don't have assets, much assets. Assets are being controlled by other castes. And there is no question, there is no discussion of asset distribution. And therefore some people say that it is the land distribution which will will reduce the severity of the caste system. I won't say that they are totally wrong, but how to do it? Because when you start doing it, the caste itself becomes a problem. Ambedkar described caste system as a closed India. It is a closed system. The class system is open system, he says, but the caste system is a closed class system. It is a closed class according to him. A class from where people cannot migrate to other caste. He has very nicely described how each caste works against another in Indian situation. He has described it as a building without staircase. Indian social system is like a building without staircase. One caste is sitting on the head of others and there is no mechanism of going down or going up. And therefore he says that it is very difficult to organize all the people together. Because there is always a caste which is downwards and people feel that they are happy, they are better than that caste. I had an interesting incident. The Britishers started enumerating people on the basis of caste in 1831 and 1931. Till 1931-41 they were doing it. There were more than 1800 applications with the British government that from the caste which say that we have wrongly been interpreted and put into lower caste, but we have belonged to higher caste. And after Mandal now exactly reverse is happening. People are saying that we are wrongly put into upper caste, but we are into lower caste. That is how the social situation changes. We have to understand that. So that is one thing. What has changed? I will come back to Maharashtra. 1920 Lokmanya Tilak died. Till Lokmanya Tilak was alive, the Brahmins dominated the Congress party. But with the advent of Mahatma Gandhi and his insistence that the common farmer, common man should become a part of the freedom movement, people started, the upper caste people and the privileged community started getting frightened. So most of the Pune Brahmins who were with the Congress left and joined Hindu Mahasabha. At the same time, the Brahminical caste as such, and those people started RSS in 1925. Very interesting. The Communist Party was formed in 1925 because workers have become conscious of their power. But at the same time, the upper castes in India became insecure because of the social consciousness getting percolated to the masses. And therefore they realized now that unless they do something, their privileged position is compromised. And therefore RSS was formed in 1925 to protect the interest of the privileges. And therefore if you see from 1925 till 1947, RSS was in close contact with all the feudal kings of India. And they never participated into freedom struggle. Because under Mahatma Gandhi, freedom struggle unleashed the strength of the masses and started churning of the social process. It would have been, according to them, he was a reformist, some slow, but the fact remains that he was a mass leader who brought masses into the movement, and which was not appreciated by the Congress leaders who till 1920 thought that they have a privileged position. So in Maharashtra, the Satyashodhak Samaj joined with Mahatma Gandhi and became the strong Congress followers, and therefore the Congress party from 1930 onwards had strong roots in the rural Maharashtra. And that remained till 1992, till Mandal Commission came. The Congress retained the power. On one hand, they projected anti-Brahminism, saying in the name of Bahujans, bringing all the other castes together. The only caste which did not come with them was basically Dalit Mahar caste among Ambedkarites, because Ambedkar took anti-Congress position after 1952. He left the ministry and formed a Republican Party. And a group of Republican Party which wanted to join Congress split from Republican Party and they formed a separate Republican Party. But the Republican Party which remained was anti-Congress in its attitude. And we had close relations with that party. We had a joint satyagraha, very massive satyagraha, in lakhs and lakhs of people participated for land distribution. That was in 1968. Kisan Sabha and the Republican Party jointly had that struggle against the feudal lords. So that close association is very important. And one of the reasons for the split was they were accused. The Republican Party leaders were accused by the split group that they are favoring communists, which Ambedkar has not approved. So anti-communism was one of the bases of the split in the Republican Party. But in 1970, things started changing. The first or second generation of Dalits who got benefit of reservations and education came into society. Many of them were poets, writers of eminence. They came together and they said that this is something wrong. And therefore they were influenced by Annabhau Sate, one of the well-known communist Dalit writer who has written more than 35 novels. It is interesting, we should know about Annabhau Sate. He was our party member, but used to appreciate Ambedkar and always thought of bringing caste and class together. He was the first president of Dalit Sahitya Sammelan, that is Dalit literary movement which was started. He was the first president of that movement. And he has described these Dalit words as a word for oppression of the workers as well as the caste system. Coming together is Dalit, according to him. That is how he defined. So these youngsters were inspired and they took up Dalit word as their organizational word. And they were also inspired by the Black Panther movement in the United States. Because that time, if you remember, Vietnam War was going on and youngsters, particularly under Martin Luther King and subsequently Malcolm X and others, the black movement had become very strong and they had taken the name of Panther. So they named their organization as Dalit Panther and became militant. And there was a struggle between the Shiv Sena and Dalit Panther in Mumbai, in which the communists were with Dalit Panther. We protected, not only protected them, we also participated with them in counter-attacking Shiv Sena at that time. But this Dalit Panther became very strong. Again, Dalit Panther was split on the basis of some leaders being accused of having been close to Marx of the communist movement. Namdev Dhasal, Arjun Dangle and others were accused that they are very close to communists, and therefore those who wanted to split said that we are with Ambedkar, Buddhist. So they went with the Buddhist Mahasabha and started mass movement, Raja Dale and others. And that is how the Dalit Panther movement was split. But since 1970 to 1978, Dalit Panther movement was one of the phenomena which shook not only Maharashtra, but shook the world, the social life in all of India. It was such a militant movement, bringing oppressed from the upper caste and lower caste together. And Communist Party was very much a part of that movement. We should be proud about it, but that is how it is coming. We have now, that movement has completed almost 50 years in 1920. So we have published a book written by one of the founders of Dalit Panther, and we have published that book from our Marathi thing, Dalit Panther, origin of Dalit Panther. It's a big book, but if you are interested, you can get it translated and publish it in Telugu also, in which he has narrated how the communists were influential in Mumbai. See, we have a problem when we organize this Dalit rights movement. Many old comrades from Dalit sub-community who worked with Communist Party, when Ambedkar was present himself, suddenly felt that we are adopting Ambedkar as an icon. And they said, are we fools to have fought with Ambedkarites during that period? Because we had I think even today, at least 13 districts have Dalit district secretaries in Maharashtra with Communist Party. 3 of the secretariat members are from Dalit community. I didn't know it, but I was told by Dalits themselves. Because one community, Dalit community, wanted an organized festival. So they came to me and said, why don't you ask this particular gentleman from your secretariat to join? I said, why should he join? He is from our caste. They used to say. Till that time, I was also not aware of that caste. Because we never think in terms of caste. He was an agriculture labor leader, and so we always look at him like an agriculture labor leader. But now people are being identified on the basis of caste, not on the basis of work. So it is, we should call it as a revival of casteism or impact of political non-casteism, this paper has very nicely described these contradictions. Another contradiction which we have to understand is the conflict between the landed gentry and the Dalit movement. The farmers' movement, if you have seen, after that incident in that Khetri, where people were murdered by the BJP goons, Mayawati didn't go there. Because she never commented on farmers' movement. Because most of the farmers in North India do not have land. They are landless laborers. So what interest do they have? That is her interpretation. And it did not have political influence that we have seen in the elections. It had a very limited political influence. But in most of the places, the communal influences was predominant. One of the interpretation of AAP's victory in Punjab is being said that Congress gave a Dalit face as a chief minister and Akali Dal went with the Dalit party. So the Jats in Punjab didn't like it and so they voted for AAP, which is silent on the issues of social equality. Even they project Ambedkar and Bhagat Singh in a different manner, not in the way in which we try to project him. But anyway, these are interpretations. There could be a number of interpretations to the fact, but that fact remains that in today's scenario, the conflict amongst the middle caste and the lower caste is increasing. What is happening in Tamil Nadu? In fact, Tamil Nadu was the first where the cultural movement DMK succeeded in bringing anti-Congress parties to the power. Since 1967, Congress has been marginalized in Tamil Nadu. But what about the relations, what about the status of Dalits in Tamil Nadu vis-a-vis other castes? There is always a conflict. And severe conflict. Again, it is because of the land, according to them, some land. It is not only land. It is the social hegemony which is the characteristics of the caste system, where one caste is at the top and the other caste is at the lower side. So all these issues are there which we have to be addressed. The capitalism, the spread of capitalism in India is another thing which should disturb us. Because capitalism is very cleverly using not only religion but the caste discrimination and differences also to consolidate its power in India. I'll give an incident. When Mandal was declared, BJP supported anti-reservation movement. Kejriwal is a classic example of that anti-reservation movement. But very soon BJP stopped talking about the anti-reservation movement. Why? Because BJP realized that caste system is the basis of Hindu religion. So if one dominant caste in the state gets organized, other caste consciousness will compel them to work against that caste. And by organizing those small castes, BJP can have a political backing. And that is what they are doing in Uttar Pradesh. Against the Jatav caste, which is after Mayawati, they are organizing all small castes against Yadavs of Samajwadi Party and Jatavs of BSP. And Jatavs and Yad cannot come together because there is a struggle of domination in villages. The villages in which Yadavs are in majority, Jatavs are not given equal rights. And there are very few villages with Jatav majority. So the Jatavs and Yadavs cannot come together. And all other castes have been organized in such a manner that this division can help BJP to control Uttar Pradesh. So this kind of politics and this kind of social realities that we as a communist have to face. Wherever I go, reporters ask me, which caste is going to vote for you? As a communist, what should I tell? The caste of our candidate also doesn't help, because the caste equation helps only if there is a perception that your candidate is going to vote. I am not saying that our winning candidates do not get vote on the basis of caste. But he will get votes on the basis of caste only if there is a perception that he is going to be elected or he is in the race. Today we are not in the race. So the caste of the candidates also doesn't help us in getting votes. So these are the issues which we as a communist will have to tackle. When we analyze Ambedkar and Phule, we cannot just copy their ideas, because they existed in different times altogether. During Ambedkar times, the class formation in the caste had just begun. In Phule's time, it was non-existent. In Ambedkar times, it had just begun. The class formation within the caste had begun. Now it is consolidated. And the upper caste and upper class has very cleverly absorbed the class friends. In fact, the Ambedkar movements always criticize the officers of the bank or education institutes, lecturers or professors and teachers who are now drawing good salaries and have become middle class, of having betrayed the movement. In fact, they accuse that they have become Brahminical in their approach, which is partly true, not always. But at the same time, this particular section of the society in public sector, our Vijay Kumar has just gone, everywhere they start Ambedkar Association and they oppose all the decisions of the unions under the basis that these unions belong to upper caste and they do not take up our issues. So there is a tension amongst the workers, as Ambedkar has said, that caste system not only divides the workers and the owners, it also divides the workers themselves. That is a peculiarity of Indian situation, that workers are divided on the basis of caste and on the basis of religion. So these are all challenges before us. So today's challenge is to understand Ambedkar, but to understand Ambedkar we must understand the socio-economic position of the society at that time. In the morning, as I said, that Ambedkar's conception of nationalism, in which equal opportunity to everyone was his concept. That is nation state for the benefit of the people. That was this concept. That has been totally destroyed by the hyper-nationalism or chauvinism of BJP and RSS. You understand what is happening. 10% reservation to the upper caste on the basis of socio-economic,
Only on economic basis.
on the economic basis. But still it crosses the limit of 50%, which is given by the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court is silent on that since last 4 years. And we, as a communist, also are unable to take positions because that will alienate the upper caste. Majority of the Hindus will be alienated because ultimately it is for socio-economic poor people, to whom we also claim that should be given reservations. But Supreme Court, which refuses to increase the percentage of more than 50% in other cases, is silent because now it has gone to 58%. Reservation has gone to 58%. So as per the Supreme Court order, it is illegal. But for 4 years, Supreme Court is not doing anything, and I am very confident till 2024 they will not do anything. In 2024, when this party comes back to power, then they might give a judgment. By that time, it will become unfructuous. They make changes very slowly. What is this big privatization, monetization pipeline? What is this? What do you mean by privatization? The movement is not strong enough to have reservations in private sector. And they are privatizing everything. They are privatizing public sector where reservations were in existence. So in a way they are hitting the minority communities and helping the upper caste communities. So their game plan is very clear and upper caste understands that. So please, all these things, that doesn't mean I would say that they represent only the interest of the upper caste. The lower caste also are with BJP because there is a tendency among minorities to be with the power. But the whole mechanism of RSS, cultural mechanism of RSS, today there is a very good article in Hindu, you must read, that how BJP has managed to convert Hindu consciousness or Hindu identity as a majority identity.
Is there philosophy?
Huh?
Is there philosophy?
But we have been working on this philosophy since 1925, and we have been also working on our philosophy since 1925. If they succeed, we say that our philosophy is more scientific, more rational, more humanitarian, more appealing to the people. But what is happening? Subtly, people are not angry. I remember when I was a student, there used to be a song against Tata Birla. There was a song like, "Mai hu Mr. Tata, mai hu Mr. Birla, hum dono ne milke Bharat aadha aadha bata." I mean, that was the song. I mean, that used to be very appealing to the people. So people were against rich people. Even most of the Hindi pictures, if you see, during that time made by Raj Kapoor and others, the rich people were shown to be exploiters, bad people. And common man used to get angry. So attacking richness was a favored flavor of that time. But after the implementation of the neoliberal economy, people are being appreciated. Rich people are being appreciated. Speeches like this: don't ask for jobs, be a job creator. What is this philosophy? That means be rich. There is nothing wrong in being rich. So nobody hates Ambani. We speak so much against Ambani and Adani's, and what we speak is the reality. But people are not angry. We speak so much about NPAs of the bank and how the corporates are looting the banks and public money. But people are not angry. Whole conceptions toward how to look at rich and poor, whole scenario has changed. In fact, people feel that it is the rich people. Now there are 354 billionaires in Indian Parliament. Once upon a time, I remember to appear to be rich was we would go against election. Naval Tata, when he contested against George Fernandez in 1968 in Mumbai, lost the election. George Fernandez won the election. Naval Tata lost. Now can you imagine if Ambani contests election, will he lose? He's clever enough not to contest because it is not required. When his agents are there, why should he contest? Naval Tata was not that clever. He thought that he should get elected. But the corporates are so clever these days. Gurudas Das Gupta did not contest. People were asking. Ambani had declared that in order to defeat Gurudas Das Gupta, he will give 80 to 100 crores to the candidate who will defeat him. That was the amount of money they were ready to spend to defeat Gurudas Das Gupta. We were asking only for one seat to Lalu Prasad Yadav when Kanhaiya was party member to contest. And it is alleged that Tejasvi was paid 150 crores by Ambani's not to have any alliance with communists. Now even the Communist Party of Uttar Pradesh saying the similar thing has happened in Uttar Pradesh, where SP was given a lot of money by Adani and Ambani not to have any alliance with the communists. So no left party had an alliance with anyone in Uttar Pradesh. So that is how their corporates operate. So they are utilizing caste. So we have to change all these circumstances. During Ambedkar's time, this was not the nature of the capitalism. That time also money was being used, but not like this. So it is an ideological war in which people's support is needed, and in order to get people's support, we should have a correct approach. But at the same time, we cannot have populist approach. Therefore, in the morning I said that we have formed a Dalit right movement not for political votes, but it is a socialist project that caste discrimination and injustice in the name of caste discrimination has to be opposed by one and all who loves equality, who stands for social and socialism. And therefore, Dalit right movements have to be looked at it from that angle. And therefore, Communist Party should be at the forefront whenever we find that some caste discrimination is taking place anywhere in the society. And we have glorious past. I give a lot of examples in the morning. I can give one more example from Bombay Municipal Corporation. In Bombay Municipal Corporation, today most of the corporations are employing contractors to use clean sewerages and other places. In Bombay University, there are more than 3,000 Tamilians working since 1950 to clean these sewerages and others. Their children are doing the same work, but they are not made permanent. We formed a union, took up their cause, and won the case in Supreme Court, and 2,700 sweepers have been made permanent in Mumbai Corporation. Ambedkar, who has an associate, Prakash Ambedkar, who is the grandson of Dr. Ambedkar, he has a union there. He doesn't support us in that endeavor. There is no question of INTUC or other union supporting us. The recognized union is controlled by socialists. They don't support us in that. But our cadre is fighting, and so far out of 2,700, 1,750 have become permanent. Rest of them, they are creating problems because they spell their names in Tamil. For example, I will give you, in Marathi you say Sujata, S-U-J-T-A. In Tamil you say Tha, T-H is always added. In Andhra also that is the system. So they are objecting. There is no H and there is H here. So we will not make you permanent. People are different. Like that, small excuses they are using. Bureaucracy is using. And now bureaucracy has motivated the other recognized union to go to the court, saying that if we follow the Supreme Court order, seniority will be affected and injustice will be done on other people, and therefore this order should not be implemented. They have gone to such an extent. But we are fighting. So that doesn't mean the communists have left the fight. But at the same time, we should understand that our fight is a prolonged fight. I don't know, in the morning, interesting discussion was going about origin of the caste. One thing I observed is that annihilation of caste, about which we should be concerned, and Ambedkar was concerned, is a long-term process. But people, see, when we say it is a long-term process, immediately our caste will be identified. That because you are not from lower caste, you are ready to wait for annihilation of caste. But if I am from the depressed caste, why should I wait for annihilation of caste? I want immediate results. That is kind of an attitude is there among youth. But there cannot be an immediate solution to this problem. Only the intensity and the severity of the caste injustice can be reduced, and for which we have to work continuously. At the same time, making it clear that our ultimate intention is for annihilation of caste, and that will go only if caste is not identified with birth, and if real love marriages start taking place in India. In Western countries, I was reading a very interesting book about China. When the Chinese reform started, the Chinese girls started asking the bridegroom, do you have your own house, or are you staying with parents? And if he says that, yeah, I am staying with my parent, then his market value is to go down. Because that means he is not earning enough money to stay independently. So his market value is to go down. So that kind of system prevails in Western countries. After 18, the parents themselves see to it that the child should not stay with them. He should be independent. The family system is slowly becoming weak. I wouldn't say that the system crisis will bring them together and make it strong. But family system is a problem. Sometimes I, as a communist, when I try to visualize, I still believe if the family system, if RSS is today saying that family system should be strong, because family system itself supports the caste system. Please understand. But that doesn't mean that I start preaching against the family, saying that family is not required. But ultimately it is if individual independence and individual dignity is what we respect, then all other identities have to become weaker. His family identity, his caste identity, his linguistic identity, his religious identity, all have to be diluted. Then only his identity as an individual, as a human being will become strong, and that will lead to ultimate to socialism. So it is a very big struggle. Therefore, there cannot be a magic lamp or magic wand to clear caste system or class system immediately. It's a prolonged process. That is what and there is a peculiar Indian problem. So we need an Indian solution. When the Chinese say that we have a communist party with Chinese characteristics, we laugh at them. But our 2015 Pondicherry program says the same thing. That caste system in India is a peculiar Indian problem, and we as an Indian communist will have to address it. And one of the methods of addressing is bringing class and caste struggle together. That has been our vision since long. We have never left that vision. Sometimes we give importance to class struggle and consider caste struggle to be important, as it happened during the national freedom movement, I was saying. Til Tumde had argued with me that because of your philosophy of having principal contradiction and secondary contradiction, principal contradiction is imperialist contradiction. So attacking principal contradiction is most important for the revolution, and therefore nationalism against colonialism is the most important thing, and whoever has opposed nationalism is supporting imperialism, therefore they are the stooges of imperialism. So whether it is Mahatma Gandhi, whether it is Ambedkar, whether it is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, at that time in the terminology we have said so many things about them. But when they are not there, we should try to, as a communist, should understand what was their approach to the problem and what was our approach to the problem. That doesn't mean that we should criticize ourselves also. That time we were correct in our approach. Because there was a Cold War and protection of Soviet Union, the socialist world was very important. So we worked accordingly. We shouldn't have any regret. But at the same time, our mistake, if there are any, that we should think of Indian communists. Our job is to bring revolution in India first. Revolution in India will strengthen the socialist world. That should have been our approach, which is now coming back slowly. Situation is compelling us to come back to that position, but it is coming back. So our 2015 program is very important from that, which emphasizes the democratic experience of 70 years of Indian people. It emphasizes the environmental problem, it emphasizes the gender problem, it emphasizes the caste problems, and asks us to fight on all these fronts for a better society. So comrade, with this I am about to end. It is almost 7 o'clock. So I think I should end. I want to thank the education department. I think I was sufficiently slow. I didn't want to hurry up. I have shared my experience. I did not want to go chronologically the biographies of Mahatma, Phule and Ambedkar. Because as a communist, we should think about the social situation in which they advocated those principles and try to understand what has happened to it and what is likely to happen in future. That is our concern. Their personal experience, there are so many things in their personal life which needs to be read to understand their personality. But that was not my job. The movement, their contribution to the struggle against casteism was the most important thing. Therefore, I tried to, and how it has influenced the Maratha politics and Maharashtra politics. In 1992, after the Mandal Commission, BJP has been cleverly able to isolate the strong base of Maratha community and brought all the castes together. The anti-Brahminism spirit has been reduced. I remember when I joined the communist movement, I was told that it is impossible in Maharashtra to have a Brahmin chief minister. Because of Phule Ambedkar Shahu tradition of anti-Brahminism. But in last 30 years, Maharashtra has saw two chief ministers completing 5 years term. Two Brahmin chief ministers completing 5-year terms. One is Manohar Joshi, other is Devendra Fadnavis. One from Shiv Sena and one from BJP. And how they have managed the change? It is marginalizing, divide the Dalit votes. The basic principle of politics of BJP is divide the Dalit votes. It can be easily divided. As in Andhra Pradesh, Madda and Maddiga and Malla, two castes are fighting. In Maharashtra also, the Mahars and Matang, these two major castes are fighting amongst themselves. BJP is so wise that they are using Annabhau Sathe, projecting him against Ambedkar. Only thing is they don't use word comrade Annabhau Sathe. They call him Sahitya Samrat, Lok Shahir, Bharat Ratna even they call him, but they never call him comrade Annabhau Sathe. So we started a process. We started organizing annual cultural meet in the name of Comrade Annabhau Sathe to bring back, to tell the people that Comrade Annabhau Sathe is our legacy. So we every year in Maharashtra, one city will conduct that. Communist Party helps in conducting cultural meet of these writers, actors, poets and everyone to celebrate Comrade Annabhau Sathe's contribution to the literature. So we are trying to intervene at different levels. Our publication house has received an award for excellence by state government only last month. But we specialize in publishing Dalit writers. We are a preferred publication house of all the Dalit writers in the Maharashtra. They approach us first to publish their books. Of course, we read it, and if we find it good, then we publish. Otherwise, we tell them that we regret. But first preference of almost all the progressive Dalit writers is. But now, the increasing caste consciousness amongst the middle caste is a new problem which has come up. How to address that is a challenge. So we have to put our heads together, fight against the caste injustice, caste oppression, and work for a better society, better India. With that, I thank you. Thank you very much.